Hi, boys and girls. It's Mr. Wasemann, and we are continuing our research into our endangered species topics. I'm on the second slide of my template, and today we're going to talk about defining our animals in terms of whether or not it is a vertebrate or invertebrate and what class it belongs to. Now, if you recall from watching previous video tutorials, most animals fall within one of two categories. A vertebrate is an animal that has a backbone or an internal skeleton. Animals that do not have an internal skeleton are called invertebrates. That means they are without a backbone. And there are 5 classes of animals that fall into the vertebrate category: reptiles, fish, amphibians, birds, and mammals. So when I go to my classification page of my Leatherback Sea Turtle slideshow, you'll see that I have defined the Leatherback Sea Turtle as a vertebrate because it is a backbone. How do I know that? Well, the sea turtle is a reptile. Reptiles fall within the vertebrate class or category of animals. So if an animal is a reptile, it's a vertebrate. The same is true for my American bison, my topic for my new research. Okay, the American bison is a vertebrate. Well, how do I know that? Well, it's because it's a mammal. So I'm going to type in the American bison is a and. Now, I have a slash for 3 sections here. So if it was an invertebrate, I would take out the first word in front of the slash. But since we know our animal is a vertebrate, I'm going to take out the second word choice that's to the right of the slash. The American bison is a vertebrate because it does have a backbone. Okay. Now, again, since Mr. Wasemann is not the best typist, I'm going to copy and paste where it says animal name again, right here. Now, I've defined that it's a vertebrate because I know it's a mammal. Now, what makes a mammal a mammal? Or what makes an animal in any class a member of its class? Okay, so I go back to my graphic right here. There are certain characteristics that define different animal classes. We watched a video tutorial about it last week. For example, birds have feathers and have wings as some of their body parts. Okay, that helps you define what a bird is. Fish have scales on their bodies and they breathe through those gills that allow them to live underwater. So the structure of the animal, some of its key body parts, is what we're looking at when we decide what animal class an animal belongs to. Now we know that a bison is a mammal, and there are certain characteristics that it has. Let's zoom in. Oops. A mammal has fur or hair on its body. It feeds young on milk, and they're warm-blooded, and they're also vertebrates. Okay, so when I go to this section right here on my classification slide, I need to give 3 reasons why a bison is a mammal. It's warm-blooded. It's covered in fur, and let's put breathes air. That's one of the qualifiers of an animal that is a mammal. Okay, that's how we know that a manatee or a dolphin is an animal that is a mammal, because even though they live in the water, they have to come up and breathe air. Same with the leatherback sea turtle. It breathes air, even though it can swim and stay underwater for long periods of time. So this is how I'm going to complete these first 2 sections right here under the naming of my animal. Now we're going to go into a little bit more detail about what my animal looks like. And that falls under this slide right here where it says appearance. Now, when I say the word elephant, what do you think of? Do you think about its long trunk, its long tusks, its big flappy ears, its giant size, its wrinkly gray skin, its trunk-like legs? Now, all of these are what we call defining characteristics. These are parts of the elephant that stick out in your head as something that makes you think of the word elephant. If I were to say the word giraffe, the first thing you might think about is the long neck or its spots. If I were to say tiger, you might think stripes or large cat or big sharp claws. If I were to say rhinoceros, you might immediately think about its horn on its nose. So when we talk about defining characteristics, we're talking about the body parts that stick out in your mind that makes you think about that animal. Now, when I described my leatherback sea turtle, it is a turtle, so it's going to have a shell, and all turtles have shells. But I wanted to get a little bit more specific. So, for example, I wrote here the leatherback sea turtle is unique because they are the largest living turtle species, so it's big. It's also the fastest moving reptile on the planet. Their extremely long flippers help propel them through the water, while their teardrop-shaped bodies are very hydrodynamically designed, meaning that they can swim really fast. Now, in a graphic on the next slide, I show you that the leatherback sea turtle is differently shaped than other turtles, and that's what makes it stick out compared to other sea turtles or other turtles in general. So when I'm thinking about the bison, I need to think about what are some prominent features that make a bison a bison. Well, one of the things that you notice right away is that it has an extremely large head. It also has this prominent hump on its back, and it's covered in brown, shaggy fur. So those would be three defining characteristics. Okay, large head, hump, brown, shaggy fur. Okay, so where it says animal names are unique, so I'm going to write American bison. And you'll notice there was an S provided because we were talking about the animal plurally, but I took that S off because, like the word sheep, bison can be singular or plural. American bison are unique because they have defining characteristic number one. Let's say large heads, comma. Then we'll say a prominent hump on its back and brown shaggy fur. Okay, so that is how we're going to describe what the American bison looks like compared to, say, a cow. Cows and bison are genetically similar, but they're not quite the same. And one of the main reasons why is because of their body shapes. Now, the last thing we're going to talk about is measurements. An adult animal name can grow up to be length in units. Okay, now you and I both know that people come in different shapes and sizes. We're not all exactly the same height. We're not all exactly the same weight. Our faces are constructed in a similar manner, but no two faces are exactly the same. So when we describe a typical person, we're going to use a range of descriptors. Most adults fall between 5 and 7 feet in height. Now, there are some extreme instances on both sides, but typically speaking, an adult person is going to be between 5.5 and 6.5 feet tall. So when I go to describe the appearance of a sea turtle, for example, an adult leatherback sea turtle can grow to be 7 feet long with an average length between 55 and 63 inches. So that's like 4.5 feet till over 5 feet long. They can weigh up to 2,000 pounds. So that gives me a range or a limit to about how big can I expect a sea turtle to grow. Now, when we look at are information on the website. Unlike the nonfiction reading we did for our famous Hoosier reports, a lot of the information that we're going to see on websites like the World Wildlife Fund is going to be scattered in like different text features. It's not going to be linear or written in a narrative style like a biography would be. So when I look at this section right here, it gives me some information. It tells me the length of the animal is between 7 and 12 feet long, and that it weighs somewhere in the range of 701 to 2,000 pounds. So no two bison will be exactly the same weight, but we would expect a bison to be within this range, and that's what I'm going to write down. So an adult American bison, yep, this is why I like copying and pasting, can grow up to be, and it says length in units, okay? And again, we go back to the text, 7 to 12 feet long. Now, certain animals we might describe in terms of height because they stand upright like people do. Some animals, like the bison, we're going to describe in length because the size of the animal is determined more about how long it is from head to tail than it is from top of the animal to its bottom right there. Okay, and then they weigh about 700 to 2,000 pounds. So again, I'm going to go here. They can weigh up to weight in units. I'm going to change that to 2,000 pounds. So up to gives me the limit. Okay. Is there a buffalo or a bison out there that's 2,100 pounds? Maybe. Who knows? But the range or the average is going to fall under 2,000. Okay. There is the length and the weight. The final thing we're going to describe is the animal covering. Going back to my picture of the elephant. An elephant is a mammal. Now, as you notice, elephants don't really have much hair or fur on their bodies. They do have some hair. It's very little. There are many different mammals that have a smattering of hair or fur, and unlike the bison, which is completely covered in fur. Okay, so I need to look at my animal and describe what covers it. Well, because it's a mammal, it's going to be covered in fur, and it's brown and shaggy, especially towards the top. So right here, animal name, so I'll just copy and paste right here. So the American bison is covered with, and again, brown shaggy fur. And that is what we need to do for our appearance. So when I say the name of an animal that is familiar, okay, like say an elephant, it's easy to picture because most of us have seen pictures of elephants before. But if we are describing a species of animal that you're not very familiar with, it's good to go into a description so that people can kind of visualize what you're talking about. Okay. We will continue to add to our presentations throughout the next few days and weeks. But until we meet again, continue to research. Thanks.